Okay. The Tomb of the Unknown is a place in Arlington National Park, and it honors fallen soldiers whose names were unknown. So in the tomb, the tomb represents the fallen soldiers from World War One, World War Two, Vietnam, and the Korean War, who the fallen soldiers whose names were unknown.
The guards at the tomb of the unknown soldier are super important, and they've been guarding the tomb 24 hours a day, 365 days a year for 90 years. Because guards have an extremely important job, there are many requirements to guard the tomb. Military experience and a clean financial history are just two small requirements. Guards must be rigorously trained to guard the tomb, and they must memorize the changing of the guard ceremony and pass several tests before they can guard. They also have to maintain perfect form and a nearly perfect uniform while guarding. They are also required to guard through rain, snow, any weather. Yeah.
So the tomb started in 1921 when World War II Medal of Honor recipient was buried there, and then later World War II, a man from World War II was buried there, and a man from Vietnam was buried there. But since science got better, they were able to identify the man from Vietnam War through like DNA testing. So now he's not there anymore. But they still honor all fallen soldiers from Vietnam War.
The changing of the guard ceremony is when the guards who have been guarding are switched with new guards. This happens every hour from October 1st through March 31st, and every half hour from April 1st through September 30th. The ceremony begins by a guard signaling the relief commander. The commander walks out in front of the crowd, salutes the tomb, and asks that the spectators remain silent and standing throughout the entire ceremony. The commander then inspects the guards' weapons, and he inspects the guard who was already guarding and the new guard's weapons, and then the new guard and the old guard switch places.
Here's a video of the actual changing of the guard.
That's all.
Guys, I'm so glad you showed that whole ceremony. Typically in class, I wouldn't have us do that because we want to keep the video short, but since we're not going to the real thing, that was so fun, so much fun to see. Mrs. Clausen, do you want to add anything to this?
It was very, very thorough, guys. You did a great job. I loved how you went back and forth and kind of shared some stuff. One thing that I wrote down was that they did identify the body of the Vietnam unknown through DNA testing. So I wanted to share that, but you had already shared that. So great job with that. I also wrote down to look up an actual ceremony on YouTube, but then you guys went ahead and showed that. So the stuff that I have written down, you really took care of. It's really interesting to hear what the time spent into those guard sentinels. They're a part of the Army, 3rd Regiment of the Army. There is a base right next to Arlington National Cemetery where they train and they live there. But look up like some of the requirements to be a guard sentinel, like how long it takes them to dress, how long it takes them to put their uniforms together. It's a super interesting process, and there's a lot of videos out there that are really cool. So if you're at all interested in that, look it up because there's tons of cool stuff to learn.
Awesome. I also want to tell you a story real quick before we get ready to take a little break. So we had a student, Danny Waters, who actually, unfortunately, he died recently in a car crash, but he was so funny. He drank Monster drinks before we outlawed him on the bus. This was years ago, our first trip. I think it was our first or second trip that we took. So he drank Monsters on the bus the night that we traveled. And then we hit the Tomb of the Unknowns pretty quickly in the morning, and it was super hot and crowded. And he went ahead and passed out at the changing of the guard. And you could tell how solemn and like serious the guards are. And he just passed out. And so everyone's like crowding around to make sure he's okay, but no one could say anything really loud. So luckily he was okay, but we outlawed Monster drinks after that. I also wanted to let you know that we presented a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown sculpture one year, which was a huge honor. We presented from Chandler Woods, and we had to be very careful with who we chose to have the honor to present the wreath. And that was just a highlight for us to watch our kids presenting. So listen, I'm gonna actually keep this room open for some people who want to practice their